Hello, everybody, and good afternoon. I am Mariana Dumont, Head of New Projects and AI Content at Insurance Nexus, and I'd like to welcome you all to our live webinar, Testing the Limits of AI, What Can't the Robots Do? Well, this webinar has been produced in conjunction with the Insurance AI and Analytics Europe Summit. And what the Insurance Nexus team was trying to do is to give a little bit of the feeling what sort of the conversations we will have on the during the 2 days event. So this will be a high-level meeting bringing over 350 analytics and AI experts to join forces with senior business leaders to discuss how to leverage enterprise-wide AI. The summit will take place on October 9th and 10th in London, and you can access the full brochure through the message we will be sending you now. But our focus for today's webinar is to explore the lessons learned from the exactors with the exactors they are driving today, the AI applications throughout the insurance business, and where would actually fail. But leading the discussions today, I would like to welcome Craig Betty from Celent. So Craig brings an extensive experience in the use of enterprise architecture and applications architecture practice in the insurance industry, working with and within insurers. He has advised insurers on IT strategy, legacy modernization, insurance vendor analysis, and enterprise architecture topics. Since joining Celent, he has been a speaker at industry events in North America and London, as well as Celent events in Europe. So, Craig, thanks so much for joining us today. I'll leave it to you to lead the conversations today.
Excellent. Thank you, Mariana. And welcome, everyone. It's a great topic, testing the limits of AI, what can't robots to do. So we're going to try and cover a number of topics here, and I think we'll take quite a pragmatic approach to discussing AI, so looking at what's real and what's near term, but do feel free to post some questions during the webinar. We have the great benefit of having some practitioners on the line. So I do a lot of talking about it. I know a fair bit about AI, but I'll introduce Jean and John shortly and get them to give some content as well. So what we're hoping to do today is talk a little bit about what AI is, a little bit about what AI is not, and some of the limits there. We'll talk a little bit as we get into the conversation about bridging the gap between the promise of AI, which has been everything from robot housekeepers from the Jetsons through to Alexa these days. So bridging the gap between what the promise of AI is through to reality. But also looking at how do we use AI for automation, and whether that's to automate tasks or whether it's to augment the human beings in an existing task. Certainly in my conversations with insurers and in our research, we're seeing a great deal of applications of AI across the entire value chain within insurance. And then looking at using AI to unlock true business value, the real value of getting back to profit, getting back to automation, getting back to some of these things as well. So that's probably enough from me for now. Let me hand over to some of or introduce a couple of the speakers here. So we're joined by Jean. So Jean has degrees in financial engineering, international management, and e-commerce. In her current role, she has the advanced analytics function to create, structure, and deliver machine learning and AI projects to the insurance and the assistance vertical. So we'll hear from Jean shortly, but just before that, I'll introduce John. So John joins us from Sberbank One, as a business and market-driven manager, economist, and an actuary. So if you are asking questions and you have anything negative to say about actuaries, do bear that in mind. With a pan-Nordic and European perspective and more than 20 years experience in the insurance business, a unique combination of strategic and operative business management leadership experience. So he's applying his experience through to AI now as well. But what I want to do now is I've introduced Jean briefly, but I'd like Jean to talk a little bit about some of the work that she's doing, but also what AI is, and where she's finding the limits and where she's finding useful applications. Jean, are you happy to carry on from there? or perhaps not. So, John,
yeah,
just talking.
I'm here.
Excellent. So, we were talking a little bit earlier, but maybe you could introduce yourself and some of the work that you're doing at Sparebank, and talk about some of the challenges. Jean, are you back? Hi, how are you doing?
Yes, I am. Wait. Okay, that's all right. Sorry, guys. Big hiccup there.
That's okay.
There we go. I'm back. So, hello, everyone. Yes, I guess in my bit, I'll try to go over what AI is, how can we differentiate between normal technology and AI, and give you a bit of an overview of what AI is currently able to do, where can we take that capability, and what are the bits that it cannot do yet. So, from that note, I would like to highlight that not everything that does something smart, better, or faster than humans can truly be called AI. For example, if we think about the phone, in our phone, the calculator does better maths than us, but it doesn't mean that it's actually AI. And an algorithm or software, to be called AI, will need to be able to perform a task as good as a human, but also be able to make autonomous decisions on this task. Not only decisions based on rules that we already built as part of the code. When I was doing the research, trying to figure out what true AI will be. So for it to be truly intelligent, it will require further capabilities. It will need to have creativity. It will be able to innovate, be able to make independent decisions, be able to problem solve on its own means, and at the same time have all of that done in a reliable and unbiased way. So in terms of how we approach AI, at least in the role that I'm currently at, I would like to say that perhaps a good way of simplifying this is to split it by what is that help us do. So we use machine learning when I would say probably most of the AI will sit under. And I found a very easy definition to machine learning online through HubSpot. They have an article about artificial intelligence and you. So they define it as giving computers the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed to do so. Essentially, if someone dumps a bunch of data into a machine learning algorithm or to a machine learning program, the program will be able to sort through all of that data, form conclusions, and generate predictions on those conclusions. The second bit that we looked at is as well neural networks, and this is part of machine learning, but it tries to simulate how a human brain works, with different neurons being highlighted when certain information or data is relevant to them, and then firing the data to another interested neuron, creating layers of associations between them. So that normally is used, we use that normally for example, in the insurance space, doing some fraud detection and recognizing fraudulent rings. And I would like to talk about a bit on what AI is currently being used at the moment, not only in the insurance industry, but across different industries, because I feel that perhaps that's something that is happening in the health sector can be also introduced or have value data that we can utilize in the health insurance space, for example. So with that in mind, what I got, in the health sector, AI is being used to help dermatologists to diagnose skin cancer more effectively. AI that was created in Stanford University was able to analyze and train on 130,000 images. And the results were quite amazing, really, because they were as good as a dermatologist will be diagnosing skin cancer. Similarly, AI has recently been under consideration to help tailor radiotherapy treatment. Oncologists spend a significant amount of time trying to highlight the bits of the brain where the tumor is and separating them in a clear way for the radiotherapy beams to only attack the tumor and not the healthy tissue. So in that sense, AI from, for example, Microsoft Inner Eye has been helping that, and some other AI from HeartFlow help monitoring and prevention of heart diseases as well. Talking a little bit about automation, so I feel that the advances that machine learning is seeing, especially around Google that recently finished an AI system that can create its own child, is quite remarkable. In essence, they created AI that is able to create more AI without any human intervention. So how that works is a controller neural network can propose a child model, which is later evaluated. And the evaluation feedback serves to train the AI again and produce an improved version of the AI. Let's say we repeat this 1,000 times and we end up with what is NASNet, a child AI designed for object detection, for example. So I mean, in terms of marketing, the uses of AI has been very, very well known, I think, for all of us, from personalizing products, website design, content creation, search engines, marketing automation, social media harnessing, image recognition. And I feel a lot of these aspects, although they were developed for marketing purposes, can be used easily in the insurance sector as well, and can help us personalize our products in the better way possible for the customer. In terms of insurance specifically, I feel that the data that we collect now from different connected devices can also help AI to predict and prevent accidents, for example, if we got data from telematic cars. We can use about some of the marketing skills and AI to improve our distribution. We can make usage-based insurance products that allows the customer to select what is that they actually need and personalize that for them. I mean, at the moment, there is currently working in some projects for automated claims processing, but unifying that with blockchain technology. So we can essentially process the claim in an automated manner very fast and also be able to pay the claim as fast as we process it, which is quite good. In underwriting, we've been working recently in increasing the sophistication of the models that we have there. The idea is that we want to introduce machine learning into this space and start having like an active view of the risk. And because we work with different books of businesses, we want to have that real-time view of the risk for all of them. So that will improve our operation significantly. So I mean, that sort of gives us an idea of all the great stuff that AI can bring to us. But I have to go also into the bad side of it. What is the malicious use of AI? I've been going through different meeting documents from the Future of Humanity Institute. They normally meet regularly to discuss forecasting, prevention, and mitigation of risks and what AI misuse could be. And what highlighted to me was the threat areas around security. They talk heavily about digital security, for example, when AI is being used to automate tasks involved for cyber attacks. They exploit human vulnerabilities. For example, new AI that's been developed to do voice cloning can essentially be superposed to another person and make that appear to be that other person having a different voice or saying things that they actually didn't say. On another note, we have physical security. And in this aspect, they talk about carrying attacks with drones and physical systems like autonomous weapons that have been used for military operations. And the last aspect that I felt that was quite relevant also was about political security. and AI that's being used for surveillance, persuasion, and deception, which I'm pretty sure that you'll be familiar with manipulation of videos that AI can do, creating target propaganda through social media, for example, and analyzing mass collected data. So, so getting back to what AI can't do, so I think that brings me to what AI is currently still lacking sentient. AI is not able to feel or perceive life as a constant loop of different feelings. Therefore, if we're talking about AI that creates content, for example, for a website, it will be very pragmatic and straight to the different words that they feel it will attract more traffic, but not necessarily have the feeling behind the words that is created in the content, for example. The other limitation I feel is that AI is being very good in doing a handful of tasks and certainly outperforms humans, at least in one of those tasks, but we haven't been able to create AI that is able to do a set of multiple capabilities, for example. Yes, I think, from my space, AI professionals will have to start thinking more about what is our duty of care and how can we build algorithms that have ethical and moral aspects built within, and how can we mitigate some of the risks that I just mentioned. I think the last bit I would like to talk about is some of the projects that I've been working. What are the real examples of this work? Will be mostly around price optimization. That's a very easy exercise utilizing machine learning algorithms, product recommendation, marketing automation. We've been working as well with some fraud detection. We merge classification models and utilize neural networks to start identifying some fraud rings, detect organized fraudulent activity at point of claim, but we also have a pipeline of work for detecting fraudulent potential fraud at point of quote. We are in the process of obtaining some data to help us do some sentiment analysis on customer complaints, and we hopefully will get some suggestions, the AI to suggest decisions and ways to communicate with vulnerable customers, as well as help us improve our customer satisfaction. But I guess the last bit is about highlighting that whatever models we build, whatever AI we build, is only going to be as good as the data that comes into it. And sorting out the data aspect, especially with the legacy systems that I'm pretty sure all of you have, especially in the insurance industry, can be, I think, the tricky bit for all of us. But yes, that's all from my side.
Thank you, Jean. You said that's all from your side, but I think you've covered a broad area there in terms of some of the challenges that people are thinking about with AI, as well as some of the challenges of deploying it, and giving us some examples there of actual projects you're working on. As you're listening to this, by the way, the folks in the audience, you do have the ability to ask questions. If anything that Jean's come up with there prompts a thought, or you want to go deeper into any of it, do submit a question and we'll try and get through as many as we can. John, it would be great to hear from you what you're working on, how you're applying AI, where you're finding the limits, and also looking at, I guess if you can talk a little bit about how you've moved beyond just proof of concepts to something that's more at the whole scale of the insurance business as well. So hopefully you're there, John, and over to you for a little.
Thank you. I'm here. I think Jean covered a lot. I think Jean covered a lot of the content of AI. As you mentioned, Craig, I was educated as an actuary some type of 25 years ago. So my reflection is that I worked with analytical modeling for many years ago and so on. So my reflection is that the insurance business is very, very based, and it has a high tradition of using analytics and data management when they run their businesses within several areas. Obviously, this has been maybe most for some kind of actuarial task, reserving, pricing, and so on. But the last 10 years, it has expanded to more areas within the insurance operations, claims handling, CRM, sales optimization, and so on. And what I think is very interesting and even really fun last years is that AI has proven to become so important for the insurance industry, and a lot of opportunities to increase the values of existing processes in different areas, as Jean mentioned as well. But well, I'm some kind of right now I'm working on the more as a business manager, focusing very much on the organization. We established a AI analytical team earlier this year, where we consisting of 4 or 5 different analysts from different parts of the organization. We were very excited in AI. So we're using that team to drive the AI initiatives throughout the organization in a good way. But we are still very early in our development when it comes to really use of AI. And I think it's important as well, as Jean mentioned, to be very aware of what is AI and what's not, because it's a gray zone between traditional analysis based on predictive modeling. We have done that a lot for decades and so on, and what's inside the machine learning, the deep learning within AI, and what makes the different kind of opportunity based on these techniques and so on. Data was mentioned, extremely important. AI is very much, or even more or less, based on data. So data becomes even more important in the future as compared to what it has been. Different kind of examples, just to supplement here. The first thing we in SpareBank 1 has focused on is more or less the core processes in insurance. It's about pricing and underwriting of insurance risks. When it comes to the pure pricing part, it's generalized linear models has been some kind of the state-of-the-art methods for 25 years or 20 years. So now it's the deep learning techniques is outperforming GLM right now. It makes better predictions when it comes to pricing the risks. And that's some kind of proved by several kind of works throughout the world. And when it comes to the underwriting of commercial claims, we intend to use AI or deep or machine learning techniques to automatic read information which is relevant for the commercial risks, collect and evaluate relevant risk information, scanning documents, making image recognitions, and so on, to serve this to the human underwriter, which could use less time on that collection or collecting part of the work, and use more time on making a good underwriting and make the underwriting more efficient and accurate risk evaluation. Claims handling, obviously, an area where we have started to use AI techniques. Image recognition has been mentioned when it comes to in the first hand car damages. Fraud detection, very relevant, using machine learning techniques in a more efficient way compared to earlier. And of course, what maybe will be some kind of I think at least an area with the most potential is the personalized product and service offers, where we use individual data of each customer and mix it with the general information, where the input data as the input data, and then output with these specified recommendations, which is linked up to each single customer in a good way. And of course, making learning systems out of this. Natural language processing is another area within AI where we use where we intend to work on chatbots in claims handling, chatbots in sales. I mentioned scanning documents in underwriting and so on. That's important areas. Turning to talk a bit about more about organization and competence, which are areas which is very important when it comes to really utilizing AI in the insurance business, because it's easy to, or more or less quite easy to focus on data science, the data engineering, the technical part of AI. But what about the organization as a whole? To my mind, it's in particular three areas, organizational parts, which are important to include into an AI loop. First of all, the business side, as the owner of the process, the business process, and the business insight to identify and understand the problem to be solved. It's very important that the business units are included into and understand the AI potential of their own. Then, as mentioned, advanced analytical and data science competence to build the AI models and understand the need for data information and data processing. And then IT competence and access to relevant digital platforms and systems to put the models in production in a stable and scalable manner. The three parts have to work together to make AI as a success in an insurance company, as well as in other type of businesses, of course. Steps to succeed with AI when it comes to how to organize it. Some steps. Number one, ensure a broad understanding of AI and its opportunities and limitations in the organization. Number two, build a minimum of AI competence within the areas I mentioned, and then get some experience. Start small, prioritize small and short-term AI projects and run them through AI agile teams to succeed with these low-hanging fruits. And then it's very important to involve the top management. Maybe not at the first, but quite fast in the process loop. You need maybe one or two sponsors in the top management team to get involved, understand what's going on, what are the opportunities with AI, why will the insurance company or the insurance business fail during some years if you don't focus on this. And then the AI should be included into the business strategy and IT data strategy, of course. And and then you have to expand based on the experience you make and so on. So it's not an easy way to succeed, but there are steps to follow, I think, when it comes to ensure the success.
Excellent.
Finally, I just mentioned that when it comes to organization, a role which I think will be very important right now and not at least in the future. It's a role which is by some call it an analytics translator role. And that's a role in an organization where it's a link between the technical side, that is the data scientists, data engineers, IT, and so on, and business people running the business processes, different part of the organization, and so on. That role, that translator role, is very important to have, and that I think experience the last couple of years is that you must not undermine the importance of having people whose the legs into both areas, understand the domain of the business process, talking to the business side, and also understand the core of the technical side when it comes to AI. Not being an expert when it comes to the real technical part, but enough competence to understand what's going on and translate it into business strategy, and not at least prioritize the right projects to succeed. Yeah.
Excellent.
That's it.
Cool. Thank you. So we've already got quite a lot of questions through from the audience during the time that you were both speaking there, and I can already see we're not going to get through all of the questions, but hopefully we can get through as many as we can. One of the questions that came up is something that I hear quite a lot, and this is about the operations teams and the guys who are going to benefit from AI, in theory, are scared of it. So the example that's given here is an AI underwriting system, but actually the underwriters and the underwriting managers are scared of it and worried about what it's doing. They don't understand it. John, is that a role for the translator to try and address some of that, or do you think that there's a wider set of I don't know, education and learning that people within an organization need to do in order to understand the benefit of AI and adopt it?
It's a very good question, and it was raised quite immediately in my organization as well. There are different ways or different things to be aware of when it comes to such kind of question. It's important to understand, to let's say the underwriters or the business side understand what is AI and what's not, and then try to explain how AI can help the underwriters to make a better job. A part of that question is obviously instead of if it's today 20 underwriters, you only need 10 of them 3 years from now, and so on. Yes, it might be so that you need less, but the focus in the beginning should obviously be that to increase the quality of the underwriting. Then the underwriter and the machine have to work together to increase the value of the work. So what we have done is to involve the underwriting unit in a good way, explain the benefits, that the work will be more fun in the future, and focusing on quality and not on reduction of number of employees at all. We don't know how many underwriters we need in the future. If the existing underwriters use more time on quality work compared to systematic approach when it comes to collecting information, then the work all in all will be more fun.
Absolutely, I love it. A phrase I've been using, I must admit, has been the bionic underwriter, and you characterized it very well there when you said the man and the machine working well together. I think certainly the initial projects have to focus on augmenting the capability and stepping in and helping rather than stepping in and replacing. Jean, in your work, is this a challenge that you've come across? How have you dealt with units that would benefit from AI but perhaps are worried about adopting it?
Yes, definitely, Craig. I've seen this in pretty much all of the projects that I've been running. Essentially, yes, we start with the fear, and the way I've dealt with it is, I guess, working closely with all the teams, involving them in the creation of what I'm doing from the start of the project, getting them involved to setting up the KPIs, trying to get them involved as much as possible in terms of selecting what parameters we can utilize so they feel part of the process. They know what went into it. Perhaps they don't know how it all happens, how all the magic happens, but they know what the logic behind it is. I think that work is working well. It's still a work in progress, and I think it will continue to be, because it's until we can start proving that all of these initiatives will have a benefit for the company, but also for the ground people, for the operational people. They will start seeing a reduction of the tedious tasks. They will be able to focus more on value-added tasks and capabilities, and they will be able to do more of, in the underwriting space, for example, they will be able to do more actual actuarial work and more analytics out of it, rather than having to dig out figures, trying to calculate renewal prices, because all of that should be done automatically, should be all done through analytics. So, yes.
Excellent. I think you've actually touched on another question that's come through, and so the question is, how do AI techniques complement or go against classical actuarial analysis? I've had I've had various discussions that sort of say actuarial training historically has got people looking the wrong way, looking at history rather than the future. But it'd be great to have your perspective. Jean, did you want to carry on that one?
Sure, Craig. Yes, personally, in my background, I used to do some actuarial work as well back in New Zealand and in the health insurance industry. Essentially, yes, we start looking at the past. We're trying to figure out what the risk is likely to look like. We put together some risk models here, and we produce what should be the premium to charge for that risk. But essentially, I think underwriters understand that, of course, and we in data science, we understand that history and data is what makes our models more predictive. So it's a matter of unifying those two aspects and trying to get the most out of it. So having that background of what history is telling us, but also integrating that to help us predict the future better. I think that's what we need to do. Yes.
Excellent. And I think so from my discussions with clients, I see a lot of the AI projects actually bubbling up from the actuarial department. There's usually graduates in there with our experience and people with the right kind of skills. Jon, did you want to add anything on that and how AI and actuarial analysis play together?
Just a short comment, because I haven't been too much into actuarial works the last years, but I have recognized that it took a bit time before the actuaries was turning their head in the direction of AI, and not at least machine learning and deep learning, what we're talking about here. It may be based on cultural conservative, at least in Norway, where we operate. But I think the actuaries are really heading that direction right now. And as was mentioned, the proof of the pudding is in the prediction quality of risks when it comes to actuarial tasks and so on. So I think the actuarial area, we are really heading into AI right now.
Excellent. And there's a question here which I think touches on or brings some of these together, but it brings in the reinsurers and some of the other parts of the insurance value chain. So perhaps for you first, Jon, how do you see AI leading to a change in the way that insurance risk is packaged and distributed into the reinsurance and other risk-taking markets? I think you were touching on it there, but do you want to expand on that a little?
Did you mean the link to reinsurers?
Yeah. So how do you think it will change? Will it lead to a change to the way that insurance risk is understood, how it's packaged, and then the interaction with the reinsurers as well?
Yeah. In general, I think that AI will change most of the way the insurance processes is run. At least if you look some years ahead, the nature of insurance, that's, to my mind, is very stable. You know, people or companies need insurance to skip their insurance risks through premium payment. But the way you measure risks, I think that will change, but not change extremely, but change in a way what kind of information you generate. It could and will be much more individualized when it comes to risks. Maybe part of this process will be that you go too far when it comes to differentiate the risks compared to how it operates in the market. You know, what is, let's say, risk correct don't necessarily need to be business optimal when it comes to simplicity and so on. So you have to find a balance between how the business is operated and how differentiating you're going to make your pricing and writing and risk, and then also how you communicate with reinsurance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's going as far at the moment as we're seeing the reinsurers coming to market with tools that insurers can use that are based around AI models and that sort of thing, with the amount of data that reinsurers can see.
But again, you're back to that data is some kind of the oil here. So the data is the key here to succeed with AI when it comes to reinsurance and the standard insurance. So again, if the reinsurers have a lot of data, there will be that will be a pro for the reinsurers compared to each single insurer, to my mind.
Excellent. A question, just going back to that, data is the oil. I mean, this is the lifeblood of an insurance company, but it's absolutely essential for driving AI projects. A question that came through earlier, and I'll direct this to you, Gene, if that's okay, is how are you getting? What processes have you put in place? How are you getting the data from where it currently exists and getting it into where it needs to be for you to build some of these models and for you to execute some of the models as well?
Yes, that's a very good question, actually, and tricky one to answer, to be honest. I mean, in my current role, we have data scattered in different servers. We got a variety of legacy systems, which data, perhaps some of the data is being passed to historical data warehouses. Some of the data, especially metadata, has never been passed from the source systems to anywhere. So, I mean, the way I'm working around them at the moment is trying to centralize all of the data to one location. So essentially, I got a big project around data lake. So we're creating a data lake for the insurance division. We are trying to get as many sources as we can in there, obtain all of the metadata we can from the source systems, and with utilizing, of course, cloud technology in AWS, putting compliance by design, taking GDPR into consideration, having different areas for anonymized data, for PII data, and then effectively running all of the analytics projects from that centralized location of data, where we can have a raw zone where data scientists can operate with all of the metadata included in there. We can have a trusted zone that will essentially be targeted for business users, business managers, that they can see high-level information of their accounts, or if they're looking at a specific, let's say, the health space, we looking at a specific provider in America, how many surgeries we're going with, and what is our current expense ratio, how much profit we're getting of those policies, etc. So having those different zones created with a specific purpose, one purpose for data science, another purpose for business users, and perhaps even a third purpose when we have all of the current analytic or analysis reporting functions, I think is certainly the way to go. At least it's been my plan in my current role.
Excellent, thank you. And John, what I've seen in some insurers and some large banks as well is because you get AI projects bubbling up in different places, you also get multiple data lakes bubbling up across the organization. When Gene, it sounds like you're in a great position. John, how are you dealing with data? Are you finding it's easy, or is it a hard problem to solve?
Can you repeat just quick?
In terms of dealing with the data and getting it into a useful place for doing the AI modeling, how are you dealing with that? Has it been successful? Has it been easy? Difficult?
Nobody will tell you that handling data is easy. It's if they do, they lie, you know. But it's challenging. I think it's important to have even more important in the AI times that you are very clear and have an opinion of a data strategy where you differentiate between what kind of use, you know, standard reports, etc., will and should be based on data warehouse structures, which is some kind of specific based, while some kind of fluent analytics where you fail and try and fail when it comes to, for instance, AI modeling and so on. Then you have to much more into the data lake side, and you have to combine how you organize your data in a good way, as Jean mentioned. That's very important. It's hard, but that becomes, I think, even more important now, because the insurance industry will be even more data driven compared to earlier. So that's very, very important. And it sounds that maybe that's a bit harder compared to making the AI models when it comes to data scientists working with the data engineers and so on. But yeah, it's not an easy task. It's not.
Excellent. No, I asked the question that way because just for people on the audience, if you're in a position where you don't have a data lake, or you have multiple data lakes, and you're tying yourselves in knots with some of the data, don't worry, you're not alone. It's often the case. But I completely agree with you, John. And you have to have a data strategy and be looking at some of these things. And Jean, very impressive what you were describing there in terms of the work. Another question, if I change tack a little bit away from data, another question that's come through is, so I'll read the question and I'll rephrase it a little bit, because I think we want to touch on a couple of areas here. What confidence can be put into AI models, since as a black box model, they don't offer typical statistical metrics like confidence intervals? Now, I know there are many different AI algorithms out there for building different models. Some of them are quite translucent. You can see through them. So the decision tree algorithms and decision forests are usually quite easy to introspect. But certainly the deep learning neural networks and things like that are very, very difficult they are a black box. They're quite difficult to look into and say, what is it really doing? And this is an area that in some countries, the regulator is very, very interested in. So the regulator wants to understand how the insurer is operating. So I don't know which of you wants to take this one first, but in terms of looking at using AI in a regulated industry, where some of the models that come out are difficult to describe the behavior, how are you dealing with that? How are you communicating that? Perhaps, John, is that a role for the translator, or is it that the regulator and the people who want to inspect these things need to get some capability in understanding what an AI model does?
It's a very, very good and relevant question, because the regulators will ask these questions. A joke is to ask the machine, which will answer itself. But
we need sentient machines that know how they think.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you have to build intelligence into the machine so they can ask all questions from the regulators, But I think it's a challenge as well when for at least the data scientists or data analysts today, when it comes to understand, because traditional modeling is based on that data scientists or analysts themselves know what's happening in their model and understand it, and they have to some kind of get slip of that understanding when it comes to black box modeling and so on. So you have to some more trust the environment of the model. So it's a good question about the regulators, because sometimes you're not able to or in position to answer specific questions about it. But I think the regulators, one part of the questions will be, what kind of data do you use into your models? And that is much more easy to answer. And that is, for the regulators, that will be very interesting and important for them to have to have good answers on. But what happens with the data when it comes to for instance, how a model predict something and give advice to single customers when it comes to insurance and so on. It's sometimes it's hard to, but I think the models is built in such a way that it's in a general way it's possible to answer what's happened in the models. Absolutely, but it depends very much on how specific the question is from the regulator.
Excellent.
I think, from my experience, Craig, when I have some experience that I have dealing with the regulators in previous roles, essentially they asking you not necessarily very specific questions around what the actual model logic is using. It's more about what data is being selected, what parameters have been selected to be relevant for that model, what is it trying to predict, and also what compliance and security mechanisms you have in line of that specific model, like model versions, model validation, and being conscious also of what is having an ethic committee, for example, helps making management decisions with regards of what you're going to allow the model to use. What are you going to allow the model, how far are you going to allow the model, say, for example, move prices? How are you taking care of vulnerable customers, for example? If you're talking about car insurance as a regulatory requirement for driving a car, if we make the price too expensive because the algorithm is saying that that's the best price for that policy, there might be some customers that are vulnerable that won't be able to pay that amount and won't be able to get insurance anywhere else. So they are taking away the opportunity to drive a car. So I think that's the aspect really that the regulators sometimes are more looking into, as companies, as insurers, having the required compliance procedures, having control of what the models are, knowing what the data is going in, what are the outputs, that the outputs make sense and they are ethically sound. So I think that's probably, in my experience, what I've seen.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So we're near the end of the time now, so I'll hand back to Mariana. But just before I do that, I'd like to thank everyone who asked questions, and I apologize if we didn't get to your question. And also to thank our speakers, John and Jean, for their great insights. And I hope that was useful. Over to you, Mariana.
Well, thanks so much, everybody. Thanks, Craig, John, and Dan for the wonderful insights. For those who are listening, I really hope you had enjoyed just as much as I did. Before I let you all go, I just wanted to remind you that Craig, John, and Jean will be also joining us and speaking at the Insurance AI and Analytics Europe, taking place this October 9th and 10th in London. So if you enjoyed the webinar today and you are interested in joining us, please make sure you go on our website. We sent you the link before, and use the webinar discount code webinar 200 when registering online, so you can claim £200 off on your pass today. Well, thanks again, all of you, and I hope to see some of you in October.